Our world has many problems, and most of them are our own fault. Some of them are events of thousands and even million years of evolution, and some are a combination of human actions and natural occurring events. A crucial system of ocean currents is heading for a collapse. Last time this occurred was 12,000 years ago, but it seems we have accelerated the process even more. The events that are about to happen could have devastating consequences for Northern Europe and North America. They estimate the system could collapse around 2057, and in the worst-case scenario as early as 2025. This could be a devastating event for many countries, especially in the Atlantic Northern region. Is there something we can do to stop it? And why is it suddenly so close to collapsing? In this episode, we will look into why this is happening and what the consequences could be for our Earth. This is presented by Portal. The two Danish scientists just published a scientific article with an alarming title called Warning of a Forthcoming Collapse of the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC, in the journal Nature Communications. The Gulf Stream, along with its northern extension, the North Atlantic Drift, is a warm and swift Atlantic Ocean current that originates in the Gulf of Mexico and flows through the Straits of Florida and up to the eastern coast of the United States, before turning east near 36 degrees north latitude, North Carolina, and moving toward northwest Europe as the North Atlantic Current. The Gulf Stream influences the climate of the east coast of the United States from Florida to southeast Virginia around 36 degrees north latitude, as well as the climate of northwest Europe to a greater extent. The climate of northwest Europe is generally thought to be warmer than that of other locations of similar latitude, owing to the powerful North Atlantic Current. It is located within the North Atlantic Gyre. Its presence has resulted in the formation of powerful cyclones of all varieties, both in the atmosphere and in the ocean. If we continue to emit more and more greenhouse gases, according to Danish researchers, it will only take a few decades before we have destroyed a very important system of ocean currents in the Atlantic Ocean. The collapse of the North Atlantic Ocean currents, which transport warm water from the tropics north, will have a significant impact on temperatures, water levels, the risk of extreme weather, and the ability to earn a living from, among other things, fishing and agriculture in Denmark and many other countries. More specifically, the AMOC system of ocean currents will most likely collapse around the year 2057. In the worst-case scenario, the collapse might occur as early as 2025. This is the opinion of two professors who have recently published a new scientific article about the subject. In the study, they call their findings truly worrying, an assessment supported by several outside researchers. You must know that in any case there are great uncertainties about the precise year, and it is also not set in stone that the collapse will necessarily take place. Quote, "On the other hand, we estimate that it will probably happen in the decades around 2050 and 2060, when we have chosen to stick our necks out and choose 2057 to make it absolutely concrete," says Peter Ditlevsen, professor in the Department of Ice, Climate and Geophysics at the Niels Bohr Institute at the University of Copenhagen. Quote, "The precise year means less in this context, because the point is that we must change our business as usual emissions of greenhouse gases as quickly as possible to avoid that happening at all." More specifically, the researchers state in their study that, based on extensive statistical calculations, It is likely that the AMOC will collapse sometime after 2024 and no later than 2095. A collapse of the AMOC, regardless of whether collapse refers to the ocean currents shutting down completely or changing in directions we cannot currently foresee, will affect our ability to both catch fish and farm and put food on the table. The ocean currents in the Atlantic affect, among other things, oxygen in the world's oceans, water levels, and the risk of violent storms. If the researchers from the University of Copenhagen are really right that the AMOC can collapse even on top of the fact that the world is undergoing major changes, because human emissions of greenhouse gases push the temperature higher and higher, it would create a problematic situation for many countries. Previous study has shown that without the AMOC, the northern hemisphere and most of the Atlantic Ocean becomes significantly colder and sea ice expands. This latest study confirms that, predicting that some parts of the North Atlantic and coastal Europe would see average temperature decreases of more than 15 degrees Celsius or 27 degrees Fahrenheit during the next few decades. According to the researchers' models, the collapse of AMOC would result in a global shift in climate, not simply changes in the Atlantic basin or the Northern Hemisphere, but rather an abrupt and worldwide shift in climate everywhere. The Northern Pacific Ocean would become cooler. Northern Hemisphere portions would grow drier while Southern Hemisphere patches would get wetter. The atmospheric pressure would rise dramatically over Eurasia and the rest of the Northern Hemisphere. The trade winds from the north would shift southward and strengthen. Other winds would also pick up speed. The Antarctic ice sheet could melt even quicker. In short, all of the fundamentals of the Earth we know and love are thrown out of course. According to the latest findings, no part of the world will be unaffected by an AMOC collapse. Several times during the last glacial period, between 71,000 and 12,000 years ago, the system collapsed. AMOC was already known to be at its weakest in 1600 years owing to global heating, and researchers spotted warning signs of a tipping point in 2021. AMOC carries warm ocean water northwards towards the pole where it cools and sinks, driving the Atlantic's currents. But an influx of fresh water from the accelerating melting of Greenland's ice cap and other sources is increasingly smothering the currents. We have seen climate records broken every year, and it just keeps going on. Greece has faced the longest occurring heatwave in history this year, with temperatures rising up to 45 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit. This has resulted in wildfires happening every year, destroying nature and people's homes, which is absolutely insane. Climate change is a serious problem for our Earth, but we can still reverse the effect. It's not too late. But this means that world leaders have to make some hard decisions and regulations. As many things, issues always revolve around money and power, therefore it will be hard for governments to regulate emissions. Some world leaders are corrupt and will never accept an agreement for minimizing emissions, because it would mean a loss for them. Countries with a lot of oil, gas and coal will demand compensation because of missed revenue. Some countries are focusing on becoming the next superpower, and in order to do that, they have to manufacture a lot of machines and other products, leading to enormous emissions, having a negative impact on our world. Humans will first act when the world is burning and drowning, and at that point, it is already too late.